You're listening to How I See It, hosted by Han. You guessed it, that's me. I am here to motivate and inspire you with guests from all different industries and backgrounds. So get ready for personal stories of success, of growth, full of highs and lows, and of course, unapologetic realness. This is How I See It. Okay, you guys, I am super excited. I have Ilana Dunn on the podcast today. She is a dating coach and the podcast host behind Seeing Other People, the New York Times top dating podcast. She's here to share her story, along with no BS dating and relationship advice, of course. I'm so excited that you agreed to come on.
Okay, I did not agree to come on. This was like a long time coming because I had like definitely stalked you and like listened to your pod and like known about you. And then you asked me and I was like, no, this is perfect.
Oh, I immediately thought of you because I had like kind of seen your content through the grapevine too. And I was like, okay, I'm going to New York. Like, who should come on? And I was like, I need someone in the dating world.
Okay, so maybe I did agree, but like it was meant to be.
Let's just jump in. I'm assuming because of like the success of the pod and like everything you talk about that this came from like your own kind of healing journey with dating. So please just take me back. Like, where did this come from? Like, how did you get to a place where you're now just doing podcasting full time?
Great guess. Definitely correct. My dating life was an absolute dumpster fire. And I was working at Hinge at the time, coming off of a terrible breakup with a guy who was cheating on me, who I was dating. He was a musician. I worked in the music industry, and I wasn't happy at work. I wasn't happy in my personal life, and it all went back to music. And so I was like, get me away from this industry.
Not the artist.
Yeah. So I was like, I need to leave the music industry. I need to get as far away from here as possible. And I ended up getting this role at Hinge, which was essentially being the face of Hinge on social media.
Which is crazy.
Crazy.
Not probably what you planned.
Definitely not on my lifelong bingo card.
The face of the dating app Hinge.
Mind you, like, as my dating life was as disastrous as it could be.
But that's what made it relatable.
Exactly. And I kind of, when I was applying to the job, when I got the job and started working there, I was like, if I can use everything that I've been through to help like a single person not end up as heartbroken, as depressed, as beat down as I am, then it'll all be worth it.
Yeah.
And so at first, I hadn't really been on camera before. I wasn't used to opening up and being vulnerable about my dating life. I kept it very surface level, but about a year in, I was going through another breakup, and I was like, I can't just go on the on the Hinge Instagram story and encourage people to go on the date and like send the like and respond to the person because I feel like absolute hell.
Yeah.
And so I actually recorded this really vulnerable message. Like, I had just finished crying. I was in a hotel room in Los Angeles where I had just been dumped, visiting my long distance boyfriend. And I recorded this video saying like, you guys are usually coming to me for advice. Like, I'm going to turn the tables. I just got broken up with. You probably didn't know I was in a relationship. Surprise. And I really feel hopeless and I don't know how to get through this, and just any advice or words of encouragement would be so appreciated. And this was the biggest turning point in my career. The floodgates opened in the DMs of people not giving me advice but thanking me for showing that side of things. This was in 2019. People weren't really being vulnerable on the internet, especially about dating and how hard it was. And so from there, I just hit the ground running with opening up about not like, oh, what this asshole said to me on a date or like this person stood me up, screw them. But like, it's really hard and I feel really alone and I want to find love. And it feels like everyone around me is able to do that, but I can't. What's wrong with me? And the more I was able to open up about that, the more that helped other people feel less alone. And so I started a podcast for Hinge called Dating Sucks. Light bulb moment. Oh my God, this is what I'm meant to do with my life. Fast forward about 6 months later, I lost my job. I got laid off during COVID.
Wow.
And I immediately was like, I'm not applying to jobs. I'm starting a podcast. Like, I found what I love to do. I found my purpose and I'm going to go do it.
Wow. That's so cool. I love that your story kind of starts with vulnerability because so does mine. And I told you on the phone that like I created the pod and like my own socials because of how alone I felt in my mental health. Because when I started as well, like no one was talking about depression or anxiety. Everyone looked like Alexis Rienne, who was like posting fashion content, and no hate towards her. It's just like it was that model culture like during that time. And so I was like, I'm going to start sharing this stuff. And it's funny, and I don't know if you feel the same way, but I actually really struggle to be vulnerable in real life, especially like with romantic relationships and stuff. But it was always for the sole purpose of if I'm vulnerable, it will impact other people.
I think I'm the opposite end of the spectrum where like I just always have overshared, vulnerable to a fault, where, you know, I think people ask, especially in dating, like, what's the difference between oversharing and being authentically vulnerable? And it's like, should you be in a therapy session or like sitting with a friend, or are you on a date? You know, it's like, are you talking and sharing this thing with the person because you want to hear yourself talk, or because it's an important thing about you that you want them to know to understand you? And for a while, I was confusing the two.
Okay, talk more with me about that, especially because like you're coming off two, I'm going to assume like toxic-ish relationships. And I know you've opened up a lot online about like your own kind of like healing journey. But what do you think like the root of that was? Because I know you're in obviously such a better place now. I know you're engaged.
Married.
Right? Married now.
Married. Yeah. I didn't really like myself. And I continued to go after the same guy in a different font, you know, the guy who wasn't looking to actually be in a relationship and wasn't looking to settle down. You know, I heard over and over, like, I have to thrive in my career and like work my way to the top of the music industry before I can like have a serious relationship. And I always took that as like challenge accepted. You know, I'd go on somewhere between like 6 to 10 dates with somebody over the course of a month or two, and then they would hit me with the, I really like you, but I'm not looking for anything serious right now. And I would take that as, well, they don't know me well enough to know they want something serious with me. And so I kept going after people who would, you know, reaffirm this thought in my head that I wasn't enough. And it wasn't that I wasn't enough. It's that these people were not the right type of person for me. And so I kept, in a way, breaking my own heart. And the biggest change for me happened during COVID, where I was forced to spend so much time by myself. You know, I moved home and was living with my parents and really couldn't see any of my friends. And I had to learn to like be my own best friend and entertain myself.
And it's hard to do that when you're in a place
hard.
of like, for lack of a better word, like self-hatred.
Yeah.
Because we have very similar stories. Like I really struggle with self-worth as well. And, you know, I call myself like Bob the Builder or Miss Fix It.
Oh my God. Yeah.
I always want to like fix the people.
Loved finding guys who needed a therapist, not a situation.
And of course, in the moment, it's not like that. Like you
Right.
think like I'm different. To your point, like they don't know me well enough to know if they want to be with me.
Yeah. And so I would stick around, and then, you know, a few months later, they would just think I was a super chill girl that was okay with like not actually being their girlfriend. I'm like, wait, but you've introduced me to all of your friends, and I met your parents last week. What do you mean I'm not your girlfriend?
Yes.
But through COVID, I learned to not just like myself, but also like respect myself and realize like I can have fun on my own, and I am able to walk away from situations that aren't serving me. And so this was, I guess, sometime. Vaccines weren't out yet, but people were starting to like re-immerse themselves socially. I went on a few dates with this guy, and we were really hitting it off. And he told me that, you know, he was going to go ride out like the COVID winter in Miami, where his friends and family are, and that like he'd be around for 2 months until then, and would love to keep hanging out if I wanted to. And I said, like, I really like you, and this is really hard for me to do, but no, like I know this is going to end with me getting hurt, and I've been down this road so many times, and I need to like choose myself in this. And that was a huge turning point for me. And 3 months later, I went on my first date with my now husband.
I think it's like the perfect example of what you just said before about like not only self-love but self-respect. Like there is like a differentiation between the two, because a lot of us, like myself included, like it takes a lot to like pursue self-love. Like you really have to like look at your past, examine the self-hatred element to like whatever the fuck you're doing.
Right.
But there's another element, the integration of actually making a different choice is the self-respect piece.
Yeah. And I don't believe that you have to love yourself before you can be loved by someone else. Like loving yourself is literally a lifelong battle.
Yeah.
And it is the hardest thing in the world to wake up every day and say, I love myself. But you need to like yourself enough that you respect yourself. I really think like that is the unlock there, because if you don't respect yourself, you're going to allow other people to disrespect you every single day.
Yeah. Respecting yourself is making new choices. To actually make the new choice, I think it takes courage, and it takes a belief that like you know what you're doing is wrong and you're not going to continue to perpetuate it.
And I think once I started realizing that I could make better choices for myself, it expanded like well beyond just my dating life. You know, I realized like I would leave rooms of friends and question like, are they talking shit about me now that I've left? Like I would leave situations not feeling good. And then I would leave other situations with other people feeling so uplifted and amazing. And I'm like, wait a second, like that is how friendship should feel. Why am I spending time with people who like take the energy out of me and make me, second guess myself? And so even in like friendships, I started to, make better decisions. Same thing with, I was freelancing for a while, doing like freelance social media management, freelance podcast production. And I stopped letting clients walk all over me. And it was crazy.
For me, I think like when you grow up in a situation where like you're used to the chaos and you're used to fighting for love, you don't notice how uncomfortable it is. Yeah. And I talk a lot on the podcast about how we convince ourselves that like our uncomfortability is actually comfortable. And so I think it does take that evidence sometimes to prove like, oh, I just made a choice that's incredibly uncomfortable for me, but like I know deep down it's the right thing to do. And when it actually produces an effect in your life or gives you evidence that shows like, oh wow, this is having like a positive impact, it almost empowers you to continue to make those choices.
100%. I like to give the example of when I met my now husband Jake, I had gone on like maybe 2 dates with this other guy, we'll call him Brad. And I was obsessed with Brad. Like obsessed with Brad. All I wanted in the world was to know that Brad wanted to see me again. And I wasn't sure where Brad stood. And so I was like losing sleep over Brad. Like I just wanted to know that Brad liked me. And after my first date with Jake, he texted me immediately and said like, I had a great time, would love to see you again. My first date with Jake wasn't anything like too special. It was like a fine date, but I was used to my entire life going home from first dates and saying, oh my God, I'm in love. This person's my husband. Like so fireworky, so sparky, like obsessed immediately. And Jake was just like a really nice guy. We had some things in common. There were some pauses in the conversation where I'm like, what am I going to say next? But I didn't leave the date thinking I'm going to die if I don't see this guy again. And so, I think I made it to like date 3 with Brad and like date 2 with Jake. And I was in such a panic over Brad, like so anxious about Brad and like not really thinking much about Jake because I knew where I stood with him. And one of my friends said like, Ilana, do you even like Brad? And I said, well, why does it matter if I like Brad if he doesn't like me? And my friend was like, Ilana, do you like Brad? And I could not admit that I liked this guy because the truth was I didn't. I just wanted to know that he liked me. And so being able to compare and contrast, and I was never good at like dating multiple people at the same time. This kind of just happened this way. But realizing how anxious I felt with Brad versus how secure I felt with Jake. And this was so early on. Yeah. Like so early on. But it helped me realize like, oh, I don't need to continue to go for the guy who's going to make me anxious when, there's a comfortable option here. And that's not to say settling. It's to say somebody I felt safe with who was openly communicating and validating me and not making me question where I stood.
Oh, that's so good. I've been like doing this thing lately with a lot of people in my life. If they're in a relationship, I'll be like, what do you like about your partner? A lot of the things they say are like about how they make them feel. And like the question was like, what do you love about your partner? And it's all like, they make me feel this, or when I'm with them, I feel this. We put so much pressure on another person to make us feel something about ourselves instead of actually figuring out if we like the other person or like if there are characteristics about the other person that will like make them an asset to us in our life.
I think people get themselves confused. I felt comfortable with Jake because Jake was communicative. Like that was what I liked. Jake is patient. That is a characteristic that makes him a great partner for me, somebody who, can get really in my head and, needs someone to like help me through things sometimes. Like I completely agree. And I had a feeling that that's what you were going to say, that people were more focused on like, oh, like I feel this with that person. But I do think it's so important to pinpoint what those characteristics are, because I talk to so many people who are, married or who have kids or who have been married for a while. And I say like, now with what you know about a true like life partner, what would you go back and tell yourself when you were single and dating to look for? And I think it's so crazy. Like we get so caught up in looking for like the cool person who we feel like we have to win over and like chase and, get them to want to be with us. It's like, we want to be with the person that we can solve problems with, that we can get through shit with, like that we can grow and evolve with, that we can learn from, that we can teach things to. Like that is what life is about. That is what you should look for in a relationship. And when I think back to all the people I dated in my early mid-20s, oh my God, I was barking up the wrong tree.
Yeah. I wish I could tell myself now. I mean, I learned everything, it's gotten me here. Yes. I would go back and say, like, it takes more than love. We're sold this, like, very romantic idea that, like, when you love someone, you stay, even when they treat you like shit. And I think that was something displayed to me in my childhood. Like, we love each other. That's, like, enough. Therefore, everything else is, like, forgiven. It sounds harsh maybe, but, like, it takes way more than love to be in a relationship and pick a partner. It's actually, like, not that hard to fall in love with someone, especially if you're attracted to them. But it's really fucking hard to find someone that can be an asset to your life. And I hate to make it sound like unromantic.
Marriage is unromantic. It's a contract.
I love that you like talk about it this way, because I do feel like at the end of the day, it's like I want to be with someone that I think is impressive. I don't just mean like job wise. They're patient, to your point, and they're kind, and they like make people laugh. And I love that they do this thing and it's separate from me completely, because I feel like the pressure we put on a partner to like make us happy, especially if you don't feel whole yourself, that's intense, and it's not going to bring the self-love and self-respect that you're looking for either.
I think about this every time I watch Love is Blind, because sure, love could be blind, but love isn't enough. Love is not enough for a lifelong partnership. Love is not enough for a marriage. Love is not enough to get you through the hardest days of your life, the hardest days of your partner's life. Love is not enough to get you through losing a parent or a really terrible illness where you have to drop everything to support somebody else. Like, you have to wake up and choose your partner every single day. And I think one thing that it comes back to is actually similar to like liking yourself, liking who your partner is, and realizing like, okay, this decade and what we are going to do together and the problems we're going to face and the challenges we're going to have to solve and the, wins we're going to have in this decade are going to be completely different than the ones we're going to have in the next decade and the decade after that. And you have to realize, like, when you're choosing a partner, you are choosing somebody to go through all of these different life changes with. And it shouldn't be easy to find that person. With social media, we're inundated by like happy couples everywhere. And first of all, most of them are not happy, but it makes us feel like, well, everyone in the world can find love except for me. It actually should not be easy to find the person you're supposed to spend your life with.
I'm so glad you said this. I love that you talk about this. This is something I have never talked about on the podcast before, but it's something I say all the time in private with the people close to me. I feel like there is, of course, like this element of hopelessness around dating, especially like with women. Like, it's like, I'm never going to find my person. With that fear comes settling. Because there's a belief that like it should be easy to find the person that you're going to be with forever.
Like, why? Why should it be easy?
I know. I don't get it either. I almost to a fault have been alone. And I think I've like really had to work on like, it's okay to trust people. It's okay to like pursue partnership. And I'm proud of that work. But I do feel it's a blessing sometimes, because I'm like, to be with someone and like choose that is such a huge commitment. Again, like I want them to be like an asset to my life, aside from the fact that I want to be like in love with them, of course. To think that out of like all of these people that they're going to like meet that, like, that's a hard thing to find. And I think there's a lot of divorce. There's a lot of breakups, I think, because there's settling happening because people think it's going to be easy.
Yeah. And I think there's a big misconception out there about the concept of settling in general. People are like, settling is about finding somebody who doesn't have like the type of job I want them to have, or is 5'9" instead of 6'1", or, makes less than 7-figure, whatever. Like, people have these checklists, and to them, settling is being with somebody who does not check off all of their boxes. But I think settling is really about somebody who's not treating you the way you deserve. That's where you're settling. If you are settling for somebody who is not going to support you, who is not going to, drop what they're doing when you need help, who isn't going to treat you the way that a life partner should treat you, like, that is where settling is a problem. But everybody comes in with these giant checklists of things that are so arbitrary and have nothing to do with what would actually make a good partner. They're so quick to be like, oh, well, that person's a little too short. Like, I'd be settling for them. So like, I'm not even going to consider them. And then people are completely walking away from great potential partners and going towards people who check off the boxes who they're actually settling for.
How do you think like in the process, I know that your own healing journey kind of coincided with like building your business and the podcast and all of that. How did you like actually in action start to like reframe these things? It's easier to intellectualize it. Like I can sit here and be like, okay, I gravitate towards these kinds of people because they have this, and this, and I know it's wrong. But like when faced with an opportunity to change, like that's a completely different story.
You know, I was in a really privileged position of getting to learn from so many relationship experts, and I talk to therapists all the time, and I also bring on like normal people to share what they've been through, and I have been able to learn so much from their experiences. And the more I was learning from their experiences and the more I was talking about my experiences, it's really hard to admit when you fucked up. It's hard to admit the mistake that you've made, that you continue to make. And the more I would hear myself saying I was making these same exact mistakes over and over, the more I was able to hear like, oh, I'm choosing to allow this to happen to myself. Like I am actually allowing myself to get hurt again and again. And so having these really hard conversations, I was able to pinpoint these patterns. And that's what led me to say like, wait, I can break this. I don't need to do this again. And so, yes, it's a very rare situation where you're like talking about the inner workings of your dating life to all of these different types of people. But for me, it allowed me to grow so much and hold myself accountable. You know, like it's one thing if I'm talking to my audience or my listeners or anybody and saying like, yeah, like I did this and I think it was a mistake and I wish I hadn't done that. And then a month later and be like, oh, I did this thing again. I wish I hadn't done that. It's like, wait a second, Ilana, come on here.
Dude, the podcast, it's so funny. So we're on the 3rd season and I didn't realize, like I knew it was going to be vulnerable. Like I was prepared for that. It's like a huge core mission for me. So I was like, that was fine. The hardest part about having the podcast is hearing myself talk and then living my life. Like it is the worst when I will like see something that I know to be true and then I'm living like in my life, like giving, for instance, if we're talking about dating, like giving a guy the time of day who I've said on the podcast is like a result of my trauma.
Right.
And then I'm like sitting there doing what I'm saying, you know, and we have to have grace to ourselves. But I think it does hold you accountable, like when you're listening to people's stories and when you have that evidence and when you're outwardly saying, which is our form of like accountability with ourselves, that like this isn't right and this is not what you're supposed to do. But again, it doesn't make it feel easier.
No, and it doesn't happen overnight either. Like I said, like I was listening to myself complain about the same things over and over and over and over. I heard this quote on Jeanette McCurdy's podcast probably like a year or two ago. And
I still need to read her book.
Same. I haven't read her book.
It looks so good.
I love her podcast. But this quote has stuck with me, and I think it's really profound. And it was that she noticed that she was complaining like all the time to, you know, her best friends, to like everyone in her life. And she realized like she's allowed to complain, but this time next year, she didn't want to be complaining about the same thing that she was in this moment. And I think that is such a good representation of like, you're allowed to make mistakes, but you also are allowed to learn from them. We do have to take accountability for our actions and for the choices that we make. And yes, like you might make the same mistake 5 times, but eventually like that 6th time, maybe you'll choose something different and then you won't end up in the same exact place.
Totally.
And so I've really tried to live by that of like, I'm allowed to complain. I'm allowed to make mistakes. I'm allowed to like be annoyed at certain things, but this time next year, I don't want to be saying the same stuff.
Yeah. I talk a lot on the podcast in regard to like my own mental health journey and just like rewriting the like negative thought patterns and like rewriting like the narratives we sell ourselves. I got to a point where I was like perpetuating my own misery. And not a lot of people like to talk about this because it feels like triggering. But like if I want the life that I'm like dreaming of, I have to make myself uncomfortable and I have to kind of go against what feels quote unquote authentic and natural and pick the foreign choice because my authentic desire is to be happy, to not be depressed, to not be anxious, to be in a happy relationship. And that's not going to happen if I keep perpetuating these cycles, these narratives, and also if I continue to date the guy that I need to fix.
Right. One thing that people can do that people don't do enough is, you know, find these like relationship role models and people who they can actually like really look up to and things about that person or that relationship that they admire and can learn from and try and replicate. And so whether it's a friend, whether it's a relative, whatever it is, it's usually not somebody in a rom-com.
Or someone on social media all the time.
Exactly. Like learning from other people who have been through what you've been through is so amazing. And it's one of the most beautiful things about the world we live in today is now people are so vulnerable and people are sharing what they've, experienced and how they've grown. And so if you can find somebody that you can look up to, and they might be younger than you, like who knows, but finding this type of like relationship mentor or role model that can also help you realize like you can break free of this.
Yeah. And I think you have to be willing to give yourself the hard truth.
Yeah.
Like you have to our point, like call yourself on your bullshit. Like it doesn't mean that you're not going to mess up. Like there are many times where I talk on the podcast about something and then I like will think back and I'm like, fuck, like I'm making that same choice again. Yeah. Like I'm not perfect, but you have to be willing to call that out. And if you're unwilling to like call out your patterns or like the things that you're doing, like you're not going to really be able to move forward.
Yeah. And it's okay. Like,
yeah,
we all have things about us that we would change. We all continue to make the same mistakes over and over. But it's our life. Like, we're the ones deciding how to live it. And yes, some people have had more traumatic pasts than others, but that doesn't mean that they can't shape their future to be what they want.
Yeah. You talk a lot on your podcast and like some of the clips I've watched about like choosing the thing that maybe doesn't feel like the most exciting, or like in the example you've given, like choosing someone that feels more stable and comfortable versus the thing that feels like anxious or dangerous or quote unquote exciting. And I think that I've been really trying to work on that. I really, really struggle. I like will go on a date with someone that I'm just like so like they're so into me and it's almost like a turn off, and that's my own shit that we'll save for a solo episode. But like, how do you encourage like your community to like take steps forward in like dating the nice guy? I don't mean that in like a boring way, but like dating someone that actually is stable.
Yeah, it's hard because we want to feel that spark. We want to feel the fireworks. We want to feel the butterflies. Butterflies are anxiety. If you are leaving a first date with somebody thinking, oh my God, I will die if I don't see this person again, that is the number one sign that you should not see this person again, because it shouldn't be that way. You don't know this person. I think we get so caught up in future tripping during the first few dates of like, oh my God, like I feel like I've known this person forever and we had this 8-hour date and we didn't run out of things to talk about. Like that is too much.
Yeah.
The goal of a first date is to just decide, do you want to see this person again? Do you want to go on the second date? Same thing. Goal of the second date, do you want to go on a third date? Like we really need to kind of scale back like what the goal of early stage dating is and be able to, identify, do I like this person? Am I, appreciating the things they have to say, the choices they make, their passions, their values? What do they want out of life? You could find somebody who you have the most fiery connection with, but you want completely different things.
Yeah.
But you're so focused on this connection that you have and how you feel like they're your twin flame and somebody how you don't know how you went your entire life without, but they might not want kids and you know that you want kids. What the hell are the two of you continuing to do on dates together?
Yeah.
You have no business being on dates together. And so when it comes to, the nice guy or the slow burn, it's really a matter of creating a friendship. I think the basis of like every amazing relationship is friendship. And like Jake is my best friend in the world. Like there's nothing I can't say to him. There's nothing I can't, that I'm like afraid to admit. We are able to just approach every day like together, every challenge together. Like, do we annoy each other sometimes? Of course. Do we both do things that the other's like, come on, like, of course. But it's really a matter of allowing yourself to be your most authentic self and not be trying to impress somebody, not be, playing it cool or being the chill girl, because that's usually what we're doing with these people who we feel like we have to win over, and we're not actually being ourselves. You want to find the person who you can be your most authentic self with, and that might mean that the connection's a little more boring. Boring isn't a bad thing. Boring is good. You don't want every day or week of your relationship to be like, oh my God, are we going to fight today? Oh my God, are we going to be so happy in love today? Oh my God, are they not going to call me back? Like, that's not what a relationship is about.
Yeah, I love that you said boring isn't bad, because I feel like there is this misconception that like boring means like uninterested, or boring means like this is not right. Do you feel like we've overly romanticized relationships as well?
Oh my God, we have absolutely overly romanticized relationships. I remember when I was single watching all these couples doing like TikTok dances together. And to me, I was like, well, obviously whoever I end up with has to do dances with me because like that's what like a good relationship is. Jake will do a lot of things for me. He will never, ever do a dance.
It's so funny you say that because I feel like even being like an influencer for so long, there was this feeling where I was like, oh, like all of my peers, I'll say, like are sharing their relationships. And I felt like when I first started like dating men seriously, I was like trying to get them online and like was like showing our like life because that's what I do. Like that's what I do with the community. It's like built the trust, whatever. And I realized after like a long period of time, like not only was it just causing problems, but like it wasn't my authentic desire. Like I'm not that person. Like I don't want to like share that stuff or take pictures. I don't even like taking pictures unless it's for work, like stuff. So I think that it's a matter of like being honest and real with yourself about like what is my actual authentic desire for a relationship and not what I've just been sold I'm supposed to want or do.
There's so much superficial stuff out there that it gets ingrained in us of like, this is what a good relationship is. And, you know, in the past, like in previous relationships, like I was so like, are they going to post me on their social media or not? Because I was in a relationship for almost a year where he was hooking up with other people the whole time. So he didn't post me at all. And it's so funny because I never would have imagined that I'd be like, the person I marry is never going to post me on his Instagram until the collaboration feature existed. Jake hasn't posted on his Instagram since like 2017, like years before we met each other. And it never bothered me. Like, I don't think the collaboration feature existed until like 2 years into our relationship. I was not on his Instagram. I did not give a shit.
Yes, because the superficial ones that actually aren't aligned with our authentic desires, I feel like are kind of like little like bubble, like warning bubbles of like what actually at the deep level we're insecure about. Like you didn't feel safe in the relationship. So like of course you're going to be upset that like you're not being posted online. It's not that you actually care.
Right.
It's that you don't feel safe.
Exactly.
And again, I think that goes back to like us needing to be honest with ourselves. Like that's like a huge look in the mirror moment where you're kind of like, fuck.
I get asked all the time, like, was there the moment that I knew he was the one? And I love getting asked this because I think it's such a misconception about like love and partnership. Like, no, there was no one moment or one thing that Jake did where I was like, that's the man I'm going to marry. Like, that's going to be the father of my children. It was just little things along the way where I felt like this is so right and this makes so much sense. You know, we want the same things. We have the same vision for our futures. We respect each other. We love hanging out with each other. Like, we just want to keep spending more time together. And I still think it's so cool now that, like, not only, like, we're best friends, we're married, we live together, like, we just get to hang out for the rest of our lives. And I think that's the coolest part about it. And there was no, like, oh my God, I'm getting married, or like, oh my God, this is the person I'm going to be with for the rest of my life. It was just like, yeah, of course I want to, you know, hang out with him every day forever.
Yeah, it's like, I think rewriting like what romance and relationship means to you.
Yeah.
And I think that's going to look different for everyone. But I think it doesn't need to look like what we think it is or feels or has been shown to us.
Yeah. Another thing that was really important for me with like the whole concept of like the nice guy or it being boring and not what we're used to, like the chaos of it. I spent the whole first year of our relationship waiting for the other shoe to drop because that's what I was used to. I was used to, you know, a guy wanting to spend a lot of time with me, introduce me to his friends, to his family, and then be like, never mind. Don't want this. Yeah. And so it felt too good to be true sometimes. And nothing was ever like over the top. Oh my God, I'm floating on cloud nine. But it was just consistently really good. I wish I could go back and tell myself, like, enjoy this. Like, this is such a magical, fun, wonderful part. But it makes sense that I was so used to getting my heart broken that I was just waiting for that.
Of course. How do you feel like, looking back now, how do you think that you can differentiate between the two anxieties? Because, like, there's obviously the anxiety we've talked about where it's like, you're like, where is he? Is he seeing someone? Like, does he like me as much as I like him? And, like, that's kind of like the toxic side of it. But what you're describing is, like, very much, like, this anxiety that's very valid of, like, your experience of, like, fuck, like, is the other shoe going to drop? Like, how did you differentiate the two?
I focused on the facts. You know, like, there was no indication that he gave me that he was going to leave. or do what other people had done to me in the past. You know, there was nothing but like trust and honesty and open communication. And I even still get like some PTSD now where it'll be like a Friday or Saturday night, and like sometimes Jake will go out with his friends, or like they'll go to a bar to watch a game, and then like he won't be on his phone and I won't hear from him for a while. And like whenever that happened in the past, my initial instinct was like, oh, this guy, not Jake, but like exes, like they must be with another girl because it's like a Friday or Saturday night and they're not responding to me. And of course I would call them out on it and they'd be like, you're crazy. And lo and behold, they were with other girls. And so like there's never been a doubt in my mind. Like I trust Jake beyond anything I could explain. And he's never given me any reason to doubt his trust. But there are times where, you know, I won't hear from him for a while when he's out with his friends. And I have to remind myself, like, I trust this person. I wholeheartely trust him. I know he's out with his friends and he's just not on his phone, and he should be out with his friends. He should be not on his phone. And I have to remind myself, like, this is my anxiety. This has nothing to do with him. Yeah. This is from my experience. This is completely unrelated to Jake.
Yeah, I mean, I always say like trust is earned. It's not given out for free. I really apply that principle. So I know like if I'm choosing to trust someone, like it's based on like evidence. And I think that also applies for trusting yourself. Yeah. Like you have to like trust yourself and like your intuition and like get good at like knowing your intuition and gut versus anxiety. This just takes like trial and error. And unfortunately, like bad experiences like need to happen sometimes to teach us lessons. And I think now like I've gotten to a place where like if I have like a instinct about something, like if I am seeing someone and like something happens and I'm just like I think they're like, yeah, like I feel like I'm so in tune with my intuition now that like I don't doubt it anymore. Like I'm like, okay, there's a reason that this is popping up. Like this is a sign that like something is going on. I need to like investigate this situation. But I can like tell the difference now between like intuition and anxiety and like my own shit. And to your point, I think it's like they're just different feelings.
Yeah. And I love that you said like something's popping up, I need to investigate this, because that's the most important thing. Like we're so quick to jump to making assumptions when really all we need to do is ask a question and get clarity. And then again, if you still don't feel good with the answer, like if you're still like kind of being kept up at night and like not really trusting the answer, then there's the clarity that you need to know that this situation isn't right for you.
Yeah. Yeah, because you don't trust them.
Yeah.
Now that you're married, I'm like, now that you've made it onto the other side, what do you wish that you could tell your single self? Or what do you tell like your community and like single girls out there who are dating and struggling?
Being single is something that we try and rush. And all we want is to like you said, like get to the other side. I used to believe that like getting a boyfriend would solve all of life's problems and I would just like, I'd be happy. That's completely not true. It's one part of life, but unless you're happy on your own, you know, a partner isn't going to magically make you happy. Try and enjoy the process. Dating should be fun. It's this incredible experience where you get to meet people and connect and learn new things and have these incredible once-in-a-lifetime experiences. And I think we are so focused on like the end goal that we get so bogged down by all of the details and all of the superficial aspects of it. Have fun with it. If dating isn't fun, you're doing it wrong. If you're feeling burnt out, take a break. We really attach way too much meaning to every single aspect of the dating process. But at the end of the day, like you should be having fun with it. And if you're not having fun with it, maybe this isn't the right time for you to be dating.
Yeah, I think it's okay to be lonely. Like, it's okay to be lonely and acknowledge that you want to be with someone. It is not okay to hate your life.
Yeah.
And, like, back to what we were talking about at the beginning, like, put pressure on another person to, like, bring happiness to your life.
There were so many years of my 20s where I defined myself by the fact that I was single. And in my mind, it was like, well, I'm single, so I suck. At the same time, I had a dream job, the coolest apartment in all of New York City, amazing friendships. I was going on trips whenever I wanted to. I had so much going for me in my life, but all I could focus on was the fact that I was single and therefore, well, I suck. No one wants to be with me. So my life's depressing. Everything is awful. And I wish I could go back and appreciate what I had and where I was at more, because I had so much going for me. And no one else was looking at me saying, oh, well, that's Ilana and she's single, so she sucks. Nobody else was thinking that. And, you know, I made mistakes. I learned from them. I grew. I had awesome, incredible experiences, and I would just wish I could have appreciated them more.
Yeah, where do you think that like that mindset came from? And like what did you have to like process to like get to let go of the fact that like a relationship is not what defines like your value? I think a lot of people take their value from being loved by someone else.
Yeah.
I know I did, at least, because I feel like I've been chasing like love that I never felt like I got.
I think for me, it probably started in college with just like wanting to be wanted.
Yeah.
I feel like I went into college with just from like movies and stuff. Like I wanted a college relationship so badly. And then I wanted to like I wanted to go to Syracuse, meet somebody at Syracuse, get married, have kids who ended up growing up and going to Syracuse. Like that just seemed like the ideal thing. And when that didn't happen, it made me think to myself, like, well, why am I not lovable? Like, why does nobody want me to be their like girlfriend? And so I kept placing, this value suddenly on being in a relationship means I'm worthy of love. And not being in a relationship means that I'm not. And then, of course, I graduated college. I went on to, make this a self-fulfilling prophecy by dating people who didn't want to be with me, who then, convinced me of the fact that I'm not worthy of love, when that was something I was putting on myself. They weren't telling me that. I think we have to think about rejection. Like, we are so afraid of rejection because we take it so personally. Someone doesn't want to go on a second date with us. We think, well, clearly I'm not good enough for them. Like, why am I not worthy of their love? It's like, no, it's just not a fit.
This is such a hard concept, what you're talking about. Yeah. Like, it really is. Because I resonate so strongly because I feel like I caught myself all the time doing this. Mm-hmm. And I feel like until recently, like I had someone be like, why do you think this is about you?
Because think about all the times you go on a date with somebody and you don't want to see that person again. They're not good enough for you or not worthy of your love. It's just not a fit.
Yeah.
It's like not that deep.
Yeah, I know. It really
not
isn't
that
that
deep.
But it feels so deep.
Yeah.
Dating becomes such a reflection of like the way we see ourselves. Yeah. And I think I've gotten to a place now where I'm now almost like I've intellectualized so much and like done so much work on myself that I'm really proud of, that it's almost harder to like move forward because you really have to face like when you're making choices that are from that like wounded space versus like where you should be making choices.
Well, it's also harder, the older you get, the more you know yourself, the more you've grown, the stakes are higher. It's going to take more for you to find somebody who you want to be with and who you see fitting into your life because of everything you've been through, every, thing that got you from where you were to where you are. And that makes the search harder, but it makes it even more fulfilling when you do find that person.
Yeah.
Like
yeah.
I talk to so many people who, met their now partner when they were in their mid 30s or 40s. And for so long, they've thought like it wasn't going to happen. But once they met them, they were so happy. Like every single one without fail says like, I'm so glad it didn't happen sooner because as much as I wanted it to happen during those years, that's how those years were when I figured out who I am. And I never would have, wanted this person back then, or I would have seen this person and, not given them the time of day. And I needed to go through all of that to get to where I am now, to this place where I know who I am and I found the right person for me.
People are really scared to be alone. Mm-hmm. And I think that there is this weird, and again, like this could be societal too, where like people, especially women, feel like they're on like a time clock. And I get it. Like if you want to have children, like I totally understand that. All of my friends are kind of like in their late 20s, early 30s. Yeah. It's this like rush of like, I'm running out of time. No,
You're
like
not.
You would rather like wait and like not get divorced or not go through like a lot of shit where you're like, fuck, I've made a wrong choice, versus like actually just like waiting and enjoying your life. And I think to your point, there's a process of like you need to find fulfillment in your own and stop putting pressure on like finding someone, because then you are going to settle.
Yeah. I always say, and this is something that my friends and I reminded each other of when we were going through it, like you could have a boyfriend.
Yeah.
You could. Like you and anyone listening, like you could go out and find somebody who wants to be with you. They might not be the person that you want to be with. They may not be the right person for you. If you just wanted to be with somebody and have that companionship, you could find it. There's somebody who would want to be with you. But you don't want to just be with any person. You want to be with the right person. And again, it shouldn't be easy to find that person.
Now that you've talked to like so many different people and have had so many people on the podcast, what is like one of like the biggest mistakes or misconceptions you think around dating or like people picking partners?
So many people failed in dating when they were trying to follow dating rules and when they were trying to play the game and seemingly not care. Because when you're doing that, you're not being yourself. When you're doing that, you're not vocalizing, you know, your needs and wants. And we feel like in the early stages of dating, we need to just be easy. You know, we don't want to rock the boat. We don't want to voice what we want, what we need. Everyone has needs. And your needs are not going to be needy or too much for the right person. You know, the goal is to find somebody who thinks that your needs are very normal, or who, you know, sees your needs and wants to show up for them and wants to, you know, give you the validation that you need. And so I think when we try and play it cool, when we try and, you know, not double text, or, you know, the guy always has to ask you out or plan the date or whatever, it's like we're holding back so much of who we are and the things that matter to us. And we're becoming a different version of ourselves. And so what happens is you get to, you know, okay, let's say it works. You get into a relationship. Then what? At some point, you have to show this person who you really are. And you've kind of like manipulated them into dating you. And then you're even more afraid to be yourself.
Yeah. Inauthentic energy is not attractive. No. And like, yeah, it's not going to be successful if you're pretending to be someone else. Yeah. And I always say, and I'm kind of joking, but I'm kind of not, like, I would rather the person know what they're getting into.
Yeah.
I think there's a difference between playing games and boundaries. And I think like maybe not immediately responding or whatever is just like a boundary I have where it's like, I'm busy. Like, I don't need to like respond. I guess you could view that as me like keeping someone on their toes, but it's an authentic choice for me. Like, it's not from a place of like, I want to make them feel something.
Right.
More so like, this is how I feel. They should know how I work and how I roll, because if we're going to be together, they should know how I am. So to your point, like if I'm upset about something, I think like I'll have girlfriends being like, I'm so upset, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, well, why don't you just like ask? Why don't you just like address the situation? And I get it. It's vulnerable to like share how you feel or you're hurt or whatever. But I think there's this fear of like, they're going to think I'm too much. It's going to start a problem. And I'm like, well, what do you think is going to happen down the line when this like resentment builds up, or when, to your point, like your authentic needs come up? Like, there's going to be a problem then.
100%. You have to voice your thoughts. You have to, you know, if you're confused, you have to ask the questions to get the clarity. It's not desperate. It's not showing all of your cards. You know, people get so frustrated by situationships. People get into situationships because they're not having honest conversations. No situationship is going to turn into a relationship because you've already, you know, gotten so far without opening up, without sharing what you're looking for, without expressing, you know, the concerns and the questions you have. Like, you have to get on the same page early on. And it's not to say, you know, people are so afraid to share what they want on a date. If you're dating for marriage, you know, you're not gonna say like, oh yeah, like I'm dating to get married. But it's like, I think it is important in those first few dates to talk about what you're looking for out of life. If you want kids, if, you know, living in a certain place is important to you, if raising a family in a certain way is important to you. Like, these are the conversations you need to be having early on. It's not too much. It's not oversharing. It's sharing with a purpose so that you're not wasting your time or their time.
And you need to listen to the answer.
Yep.
This is the hardest. I feel like I'm being so hypocritical by saying it, but this is the hardest part for me. Yeah. Like, really is. And I know it's the hardest part for a lot of people, because like to our own histories too that we've like bonded over now. We're like trauma bonding. Yep. But like, yeah, like you'll hear someone be like, I don't want to be in a relationship. And you're like, yeah, but like you will.
Right.
And I'm like, why do we do that? Like, why do we think we can do that? And I think I'm starting to just get to a point now where I'm like, they're being so clear about their needs.
They're telling you exactly what they want.
They're being honest.
Sure, you could try and convince them otherwise, but every day, every date that you go on, every week that goes by that you're trying to convince them otherwise, you might be missing out on somebody who is everything you want and more and wants the same thing.
Why do you feel you need to like beg for someone to love you or convince someone to love you? I know I don't want that.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, that's my nature. I tend to like do that, but I don't want it. So like, am I going to make a different choice, or am I going to spend the rest of my life like begging for love? It's our choice if we want to perpetuate it or not.
Yeah. You want to find the person who you can completely be yourself with. and they will accept you for that. And I think my first few dates with Jake, that's exactly what it was. Like our first date, it was pre-vaccines during COVID. So it was outdoor dining only, February, New York City. It's 20 degrees out.
Romantic.
Oh yeah. I wore I wore 2 pairs of leggings under my jeans. I had like 4 layers on top and like a giant puffy coat that I did not take off. I brought like rechargeable hand warmers, mittens, and a hat. And I was just like completely myself. I wasn't like trying to look hot. I was trying to physically feel warm. Our third date, I had just gotten my vaccine. I felt like absolute shit. I almost canceled, but he had taken off work to take me out, which at first I was like, that's aggressive. But like, no, that's actually genuinely nice. And again, like only a nice, intentional person would do that. I felt so sick. I didn't like try and, pretend I wasn't. Like he had to like put my jacket on for me and cut my food. And after, we ended up having a really fun like day date. And at the end I was like, well, I'm just going to go back to my apartment and watch One Tree Hill on the couch until I go to bed. Like, you're welcome to join. Good. And he came over. I like took my makeup off, put my hair up, put on sweatpants and a sweatshirt, and we watched One Tree Hill for 4 hours. And like, for me, that was like, wow, on a day where I feel like absolute shit, I can completely be myself, not feel worried about being judged by this person, not feel worried about like not being cool enough or hot enough. Like I can just be comfortable. And that was really like how I learned to lean into this.
There's nothing better than being able to feel like you can be exactly who you are with somebody else. And I think that's why we like love our best friend.
Yeah.
And I mean, I don't know about you, but I feel like women are very close with like their best friends. Like me and my best friend just talk on the phone like every day about everything. I want to be in a relationship, and I think everyone should want to be in a relationship where like their partner ends up being their best friend. And to your point, there's a lot of like superficial things that come before that. And I think like ultimately like looking for your best friend is looking for someone that you can be unapologetically who you are. And it's hard to find.
That security, it's that comfort, it's that knowing that, you're part of a team and you get to approach like the ups and the downs like with your person. And at the same time, like I've become so much more independent in my relationship. Like I truly think I am the best version of myself because like we have encouraged each other to like continue to pursue our separate individual passions. And of course we have things that we share together, but like I love who I have become in this relationship. And it's because I know I have this, support system, this person who's going to cheer me on. I know that if I'm struggling through something, like I can deal with that on my own, but I also have backup.
Totally.
And totally. I think it's so important to like remember that when you get into a relationship, like you still get to be your own person. And so that's why it's important to also do the work before.
Yeah. I think like one of the biggest misconceptions in dating and relationships is the fact that like the other person is supposed to complete you.
Yeah. No.
And I think it was like Anne Hathaway in an interview with like Kimmel or Fallon who was like talking about how like they are like her and her husband are like two wholes coming together to make like a double
Love.
Or to like be two different people.
I always say like a healthy relationship should look like a Venn diagram where on one side you have all the things that make you, the people in your world, your passions, your values. On the other side, they're coming in with all the things that make them, their passions, their values, their people. And then you overlap in the middle and you have shared passions, you have shared people, you have shared things that you learn to do together, that you learn to love together, but you still are complete on your own as well.
I love that. Thank you so much for coming on and just sharing and getting raw about dating. I ask everyone that comes on the podcast, like looking back at your own journey for you, like your healing and like dating and creating this podcast where you talk to all these different people and now you're married. Like, how do you see it?
Like, I accidentally created the greatest job and lifestyle in the world for me that I didn't know existed. Like, I set out to help people feel less alone. And through that, I really like found my purpose.
And I think when I'm scared to be vulnerable and like when that anxiety and like kind of like past trauma like creeps in, I remind myself of that. Like everything good in my life has come from me being authentically myself, being honest and being vulnerable. So I like need to continue to flex it.
Absolutely.
Please share where everybody can find you and where they can find the podcast. And I'm going to be coming on your podcast too.
Yeah,
so we'll like put our episode swaps in the description as well.
So excited. Thank you again. This has been such a pleasure. If you guys want to find me, I'm easy to find. Ilana Dunn or Seeing Other People.
Love it. Boom. And on Spotify, Apple, everywhere.
Yep, all the places.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed the episode, and I hope you leave here feeling motivated and inspired. Do not forget to rate and review the pod on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, and don't forget to follow How I See It Pod so you can keep up with podcast updates and see who's coming on next. And if you're not already, come join the fam and follow at How Han Sees It. Thank you guys.